Good afternoon. Welcome to this live broadcast of the National Assembly afternoon sitting on this day of the 16th of February 2022. This live broadcast is brought to you by the Parliamentary Broadcasting Unit in partnership with the Kenya Broadcasting Corporation. Lined up for debate on the floor of the House this afternoon, there is a bill on the mental health bill, amendment bill, Senate Bill number 28 of 2020. This one is tabled by the Chairperson, Departmental Committee on Health. That will be read for the second time, and a question will be put. There is also a special motion that the members of the National Assembly will be considering, a special motion on the approval of the National Assembly's nominee to the Equalization Fund Advisory Board. This special motion is moved by the Chairperson, Departmental Committee on Finance and National Planning, that the House approve the appointment of Mr. Abdullahi Adan Khalif to the Equalization Fund Advisory Board, and a question will be put to see whether members they will be agreeing to the recommendations of the Departmental Committee on Finance and National Planning in its report on the recruitment of the National Assembly's nominee to the Equalization Fund Advisory Board. Also lined up for consideration is a special motion on the approval of nominees for appointment to the Kenya National Commission on Human Rights. This is a special motion that has been moved by the Chairperson, Departmental Committee on Justice and Legal Affairs, that the House approves the appointment of persons to the Kenya National Commission on Human Rights. These persons include Roslyn Doreen Odhiambo as the chairperson, Professor Marion Wanjiku Mutugi as a member, Dr. Raymond Sangsang Nyeris as a member, Ms. Sarah Talaso Bonaya as a member, and Dr. Dennis Nyongesa Wamalwa as a member. In this special motion, a question will be put for the members to give their position on whether they will be approving the findings of the Departmental Committee on Justice and Legal Affairs in its report on the vetting of nominees for appointment as chairperson and members of the Kenya National Commission on Human Rights. Also laid on the table of the National Assembly this afternoon is the Regional Development Authorities Bill, National Assembly Bill number 46 of 2021, tabled by the Chairperson, Departmental Committee on Defense and Foreign Relations. It will be read for the first time. There is also the Political Parties Amendment number 2 Bill, National Assembly Bill number 58 of 2021 by the Leader of Majority, will also be read for the first time this afternoon. There is also a motion on the report on the budget policy statement for the financial year 2022-2023 by the Chairperson Budget and Appropriations Committee. It will also be considered this afternoon. While the Speaker of the National Assembly, Honorable Justin Muturi, has stepped into the chambers, I will now hand you over for the live broadcast brought to you by Parliamentary Broadcasting Unit in cooperation with Kenya Broadcasting Corporation. My name is Kamche Menza. Good afternoon.
Tuombe. Ewe Mwenyezi Mungu, ambaye kwa hekima na wema wako umeteua nyadhifa za viongozi na mabunge kwa ustawi wa jamii na utawala wa haki wa wanadamu, twakusihi ututazame kwa neema nyingi sisi watumishi wako ambao umerithika kutuita ili tutekeleze shughuli muhimu za jamhuri yetu. Twakuomba ututeremshie baraka zako sisi tuliokutanika hapa, na tujalie tuyatende na kuyafikiria mambo yote yatakayofikishwa mbele yetu kwa ajili ya haki na uaminifu, ili utukufu na sifa zako ziendelezwe, na ili kustawisha amani, ufanisi na heri ya nchi yetu na wale ambao haja zao umezikabidhi mikononi mwetu. Amin. No, this one is not working. I've sent them. Can start.
Order number 1, administration of oath. Order number 2, communication from the chair. Order number 3, messages. Order number 4, petitions.
Member for Kilifi North. Huko pahali yako unarandaranda tu mheshimiwa baya.
Yes. Sorry, Mr. Speaker. Grateful for this opportunity, Mr. Speaker, to read this petition regarding compensation for land dispossessed by the British colonial government from local communities in Kilifi and the larger coastal region. Mr. Speaker, I, the undersigned, on behalf of the people of Kilifi County, draw the attention of the House to the following. That Kenya's independence warfare against the British in the coastal region, as spearheaded by Mekatilili Wamenz and others, was essentially an agitation for land from which local residents had been unceremoniously displaced. That at independence, the colonial government offered 20 million British pounds, whose equivalent today would be 250 million British pounds, to the Kenyan government under the Land Resettlement Fund to facilitate purchase of white highlands from departing white settlers for redistribution to the local people. That the resultant resettlement undertaken through the fund was instrumental in diffusing political tension and restructuring Kenya's agricultural sector, as exemplified through the growth of export crops such as tea, coffee in large quantities by African small-scale holders. That residents of coastal region did not benefit from this initiative and could not engage in any meaningful agricultural enterprise on account of the harsh discriminatory policies of the British colonial and post-independence governments that denied them opportunity to own the land on which they lived, unlike their fellow upcountry citizens. Honorable Speaker, that the dispossession of land from local residents eventually made the coastal region to be one of the poorest regions in this country, which additionally affected education, health, and general development of the area. Mr. Speaker, that the land titles held by the Arabs were validated and became indefeasible, including the 10-mile strip of land at Mwambao that was given to the Sultan of Zanzibar, which in itself went against the fundamental principle of independence where territorial sovereignty was key. That the British colonialists altered the racial structure of land ownership by formulating the Land Titles Ordinance of 1908, the Seinaton Plan of 1954, and introduction of complicated English laws creation of native reserves, and other policies which created an unjust and complex land tenure system that infringed on the ancestral rights of the Mijikenda people while opening avenues for irregular distribution of land. That superficial land mediation efforts by post-independence governments did not salvage the welfare of the Mijikenda people, who by now became squatters or tenants of large-scale landowners. That today, endless evictions and destructions of properties of the locals continue to ravage coastal population as courts continue to churn out eviction orders on locals living on their ancestral land on the basis of irregular title deeds held by current landowners. Mr. Speaker, that Article 68 of the Constitution provides a precursor for the establishment of a new legal regime on land, which the government ought to refer to in instituting justice for the Mijikenda communities by ensuring that the ancestral land reverts back to them. That efforts to address this matter with relevant authorities have borne no fruit, and that the issue in respect of which this petition is made are not pending before any court or any constitutional or legal body. Mr. Speaker, therefore, your humble petitioner prays that the National Assembly, through the Departmental Committee on Justice and Legal Affairs and the Departmental Committee on Lands, with the support of the National Land Commission, A, investigates the historical injustices and atrocities committed by the British government and its officials in dispossessing local communities at the cost of their land, and pronounce itself on the matter with a view to securing their compensation. B, declares the 1908 Land Titles Ordinance as an invalid and unjust piece of legislation that was used to discriminate, deprive, and knowingly commit grave atrocities on land matters against the local indigenous people of the coastal region. Orders and audit of all title deeds issued in the 1908 Land Title Ordinance to foreigners and secure extractions and valuation of the same confirms the quantums forwarded to the British government for the award of a grant of the quantum to settle the market price of the land for subdivision of the land to the local people. Petitions the British government through the House of Lords to provide funding for the purchase of all lands in Kilifi unjustly given to other landowners and non-coastal people. Requests the British Parliament to revoke with immediate effect all the agreements that the British government entered with the Sultan of Zanzibar that awarded land at the coast, and secures the apology of the British government to the people of the coast region for the unwarranted suffering and agony caused by the poor decisions taken by the British government, and secures the appointment of a high-level legal team to sue the British government for land atrocities committed by the British government through its British colonial administration in Kenya, with a view to securing due compensation for the victims. And lastly, Mr. Speaker, make any other recommendations it deems appropriate in the circumstance of the petition. I thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Comments limited to 2 minutes each. First, member for Endebess.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, I stand to support the petition by Honorable Baya. Honorable Speaker, last year, August, the National Land Commission sought reports from various people who are affected by historical land injustices. And that report, it was advertised in the paper. It sought a report, sorry, I apologize. Sought a report from the various parts of the country on historical land injustice. And that report is with the National Land Commission. Unfortunately, during the bombers, people wanted the Constitution that the National Land Commission should resolve. But it ended up saying the National Land Commission recommends. So I want the committee, when the committee is looking at this petition, they should ask the National Land Commission to present their report, which they sought from the public, and with their recommendations, so that this House can be able to look at the report in total, affecting all over the country, because it is not just the people of Kilifi, but everywhere. And you realize that those people who were in power at that time, they ended up, I think they ended up keeping the money to themselves. They ended up, when the Europeans went, they acquired the land that was left by the Europeans. That's why some of them have huge tracts of land in the country, while the rest of Kenyans are suffering with no piece of land. So I think this is a very important petition that should be looked in totality. With those few remarks, Honorable Speaker, I support it.
Member for Tharaka.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Speaker, I also support this petition, and especially due to the fact that what the British colonialists did to us goes without gainsaying. Absolutely introduced new systems of land ownership, which were purely capitalist in nature, gave us some labyrinth of laws which the locals could not understand, and agreements which were skewed in their favor, as a result of which communities lost their land. The net effect is that we ended up with families, with landowners owning chunks, pieces of land at the detriment of local people. And this is what this petition is seeking to address, that there should be some equity in the way our land is distributed, and there must be some understanding in our land laws, especially with the consolidation of those laws, to ensure that there is justice to the people of Kenya. Therefore, this should be investigated and we get a report. Thank you.
Member for Makueni.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I support the petition of Honorable Mbaya, but some of the prayers, Mr. Speaker, we may lack jurisdiction to act upon or need some channels which are diplomatic and probably through the Ministry of Foreign Affairs to be effected. For example, Parliament really may not have the capacity to instruct lawyers on behalf of his constituents to sue the British Parliament in Britain. It may be too much, but I believe the National Land Commission has the mandate from the Constitution, and wherever it fails, then the courts of Kenya can still make appropriate court orders in relation to this land. But unfortunately, this land is now in modern landlords who are Kenyan in origin, and most of them have been grabbed by people in power, and probably people likely to capture power. And I think that's where it begins. Part of the actions are actually political. And if we have a government which has political goodwill to assist and repossess, and even the DCI department to prosecute people, then, Mr. Speaker, I think Honorable Baya's community will be served better. I thank you, Mr. Speaker.
I quite appreciate what you said, Honorable Manzo, because at one point, the Honorable Owen Baya specifically referred to the House of Lords in the UK, and at some other point referred to the UK Parliament, which will mean now the two houses, and then made reference to a 1908 ordinance. And even as you read it, and you thought that it be declared to have been invalid and things like those. What may have constituted the independent constitution must have addressed those issues. Just like if you read the sixth schedule of the current constitution, any of the laws that were in existence before 27th of August were adopted as being laws made by Parliament, notwithstanding that they were made much earlier. And therefore, I am not too sure that we will be able to address those 1908 land ordinances. But of course, it's a good thing. It's a good thing. You see, this is a period, from January, Mr. Chebukati put a Kenya Gazette and said, what is going to happen on 9th of August? So this is the point. This is the period. I therefore did not want to comment, save that I thought, now that Mr. Manso has drawn your attention to it, it's only fair that, on the other hand, again, you've sought that this petition be handled by two committees, Justice and Legal Affairs and the Departmental Committee on Lands. Given also the period, I'm sure you have, you're almost sure that your petition will never see light of day, because I can imagine bringing together the two committees to come and sit to consider your petition is good. It's going to take that much longer, as opposed to if you directed it to one committee. But I suspect maybe it's because of those things about the ordinances and things like those that you thought they could be handled by both committees. But I thought you grounded well on the Constitution's Article 68 and things like those. Perhaps maybe we'll hear, because I can see as a place an intervention to comment, we will hear. Member for Lamu.
Asante Bwana Spika. Mimi moja kwa moja napinga hili ombi la Mheshimiwa Baya. Bwana Spika, hapa bunge nilisema kwamba kuna uhalifu unaopangwa, tena hususan wakati huu ikiwa sisi tunatafuta kura. Nikaambiwa sina ushahidi na niondoe niliyosema. Nilikwenda nikatafuta ushahidi, nimepeleka huko table office, nafanya petition. Bwana Spika, maybe wengine hawatojua ukweli, lakini sisi ambao tunaishi pwani tunajua ukweli. Petition hii ina walengwa. Walengwa ni Waarabu, Wabajuni, na malengo ni kura. Ukishakuwa sahihi watafuta kura, umesahau hujafanya maendeleo, unaenda kusimama napeleka watu kwenye ardhi wanashika, wewe unaonekana shujaa. Bwana Spika, iwekwe inquiry, watu wapate haki. Manake Mijikenda kwetu Lamu wako na tunawapa nafasi ya kukaa na wana haki. Lakini sisi Wabajuni na Waarabu tukienda kukaa Kilifi, watu wameuawa, watu wamepigwa, kuna watu wamwagiwa acid. Mimi naweza kuwaleta hapa kwa sababu hiyo, ati hawana haki kwa
Member for Bondo.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I rise to support the petition, but I wanted to bring this, Mr. Speaker, that issues on land and the petitions around issues on land are numerous, and there are really many. And there is an administrative problem at the National Land Commission, Mr. Speaker, which I'm not too sure how this is going to be sorted out in terms of budgetary concerns. The matters that have been there, I remember towards the end of last year, Mr. Speaker, the Commission had to look for RAS, the people who needed services, to pay for those services because they are constrained in terms of budget. So I wanted to say this, Mr. Speaker, that at this point that we are looking at the budget, the National Land Commission has a lot of work and has been going through in terms of the petitions that we have here. There are very numerous petitions that they cannot go through, they cannot handle administratively, Mr. Speaker. If the Department of Land, our chair in lands and the chair of the budget could help see exactly how we could support the National Land Commission so that they are able to administer a lot more of these issues that are constantly in the flow of the House, Mr. Speaker.
Member for Nyando.
I thank you, Honorable Speaker. And as I support this petition with full belief that there is no mischief beneath it, as is being alluded to by my colleague here, I become bewildered that 60 years down the line, after British exited the scene, we are still wallowing under, mysterious claims of the British holding land, and the land is being passed over to other people who are questionable in nature. I think if it will see the light of day, if at all, then it is important that we look at those parcels, how they were acquired, how they were transferred. But I think it may sound not very wise to claim 60 years down the line that we were shortchanged. Honorable Speaker, when those things happened during colonial times, I would excuse our ancestors for not having the enlightenment that we have.
I have a feeling that our timer is not right. Because I noticed that with regard to the Honorable Obo, and I've just discovered the same. Please, it is 2 minutes, not 1 minute. So I've just noticed that, in fact, even the Honorable Obo, she was denied a minute. I said it is 2 minutes. Give the Honorable Jared Okello his 1 minute.
I thank you very much, Honorable Speaker, for extending an extra time to me. But what I'm saying, the gist of the matter is that as we retreat to look at it, if we shall, because as you have also alluded, it may not see the light of day, but it gives him a lot of bonga points towards his political endeavors going forward. But it will be important that we just look at this wholesome. There are many areas, including central Kenya and other parts of the Rift Valley, that also underwent through similar challenges. And therefore, we may want to look at this issue as a whole, not as part of Kilifi, where people would want to derive some political bonga points that may not serve the interest of the people at this time. And I thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Very well. Can you make sure that it goes to 0? Member for Kangema.
I want to go very fast. When the amount of money he referred to is not 20 million, it was 18 million pounds. It was 18 million pounds that was advanced when Ronald Gara from Kilifi was the chief minister. He did not, it came on this understanding that it will be willing buyer, willing seller. You did not act, and Gara did not act. Mutuapa was founded by Kenyatta. It is settled people, right? Then you'll be caught by rushes, Mr. Speaker, because all the time that it has taken, 1908, the Crown Lands Act is already obsolete. Now we have new laws. When Mau Mau went to the commercial courts in England, through to Kahangeri, they were there, they did not go. So I am justified, Mr. Speaker, that my Aswa colleague is just giving excuses. He has even referred to Watuabala, right? Other than my county, Mama County Lamu, talking about Arabs and Bajunis, you are also talking about us, those from up country. When you sleep on your rights and others act, nobody can come and wake you up, right? When Mau Mau Ketokahageri went to London, he did not use government. Why do you want government to come and help you? Just go and as a leader, gather your people, take them to commercial courts, and I will show you where they are. They are on Stradi Street, London. That is where they went and got a lot of money. Please, take access. Don't come to government. Our taxpayers are not prepared to assist you. If Ronald Gara did not help you, please don't come to us. For every wrong and every mistake that you commit and sleep on your rights, you don't come to Kenyans to come and assist you. Thank you.
Member for North Imenti.
Mr. Speaker, I do not want to support this petition. Mr. Speaker, when we are talking about historical injustices, it is not regarding foreigners. Even people who are locals as well, they do the historical injustice. And my colleague from my neighbor has talked about non-locals doing it. But even locals are doing it. Because, Mr. Speaker, if we cannot, the title deeds which are issued by this government, we cannot say that they are legal. Then what kind of historical injustice are we talking about? We need to first agree that their titles are legal, and what the chairman of legal has said, if a law of 1908, we cannot talk about it now. We have even gone through the constitution. We have done the 2010 constitution. So we need to now come right that this is not the time to talk about these things, because we want to create fear in this country regarding land issues, because land issues are very emotive, Mr. Speaker. And if titles are there, issued by the government, let them be respected and let people get out of the lands which they are occupying, which they do not have a title for. If they are squatters, let the government look for land to put them in those lands, but not in people's lands. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Member from where? Member from where?
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. I think, Honorable Speaker, issues to do with land are emotive, and as a conflict manager myself, I think this is probably not the right time for us to have these issues, and if we do, then we need to handle them very carefully, Honorable Speaker, because we are at a time when anything that is said becomes sensitive. And whereas I support my brother and hope that you travel to London for public participation in the House of Lords so that he can present this case, Honorable Speaker, I think we need to be very careful. We need to, in particular, pay attention to what was said by the member for Ramu. That is something that cannot be taken lightly. She did mention that there are some areas where some people cannot stay. I think that is very serious. And again, I support my brother, but I think he needs to relook at whether this petition is coming at the right time and come out clearly what exactly he wants done, because some of the things that are in that petition, Honorable Speaker, may not be practical at the times that we are in. Honorable Speaker, I support.
Member for Arienda.
Mr. Speaker, land is a motive in this country and very sensitive. And it is true there are instances and pockets where land injustice is yet to be remedied. But, Mr. Speaker, I would not support the petition in the form in which it is brought. We have to be very careful. Mr. Speaker, when we were writing the Constitution, forget about even the issues that have been raised. We heard from groups that came and told us that even the entire city of Nairobi belongs to one particular ethnic group, and they want it back. If we were to get there, you can imagine the kind of situation we would get in. And they did not stop there. They then told us of the 43 ethnicities in this country, they told us there are some that are indigenous and there are some that are not indigenous. All the ones that are not indigenous should go back wherever they came from. And if we looked at the list, the ones they claimed were indigenous were only about 4 or 5. Mr. Speaker, we must be very careful. If we start going back endlessly in history, we might not have a state. I think that there must come a time when we must draw a line. We must draw a line that we move from this point henceforth. Otherwise, even this land issue can be used as an excuse to excite ethnic hatred against others. It can be a situation where you cannot be anywhere else. I think, and with due respect, whatever solution we want, it cannot lie out there. And it does not lie in this house. It would lie within the country through another establishment other than through a petition such as this. Mr. Speaker, I submit.
Now, member for Lamu, why have you put an intervention again? Because of your 1 minute.
Asante, Bwana Spika. Bwana Spika, kuna video au video zile mimi nimeleta hapo table office na ushahidi mwingi. Wabunge hapa wakisema makaratasi ni yenu, ardhi ni yetu. Hii ombi la fali angaliwe kwa kina sana, haiendi vizuri. Mimi nilipozungumza bunge niliitwa Malindi, na wale wote ambao wameathiriwa, ambao wamepigwa, ambao wamepokonywa ardhi, ambao wabunge wao wameenda kustopisha hizo kotoda. Wameniita, haki ya Mungu nataka kulia. Kuna watu wanadhulumiwa. Hii ombi la Mheshimiwa Baya liangaliwe vizuri sana. Njia ya kuchukua ni ile kama serikali ilivyochukua ya pale Likoni, wanunue kisha watu wakue pale pale. Na ile ambayo sasa Mazurui Rais Uhuru ameifuatilia. Sio kusema ardhi nzenu wale wengine hawana haki. Wana haki kama nyinyi vile mlivyo. Manake mwanzo nyinyi mimi nitasema kisha museme mnataka kuchochea kusema watu mimi nasema ukweli ndio wasinipe kura. Mimi na Mijikenda kwetu Lamu, Mijikenda tunawaheshimu, na wewe pia una Bajuni, vijiji vote Lamu pia unafaa, Malindi unafaa, Kilifi County unafaa kuheshimu. Unafaa kuheshimu Ngomeni, unafaa kuheshimu Kigongoni, unafaa kuheshimu Malindi, unafaa kuheshimu Watamu, unafaa kuheshimu Kilifi Mnarani. Sisi pia tuna haki kama nyinyi mlivyokuwa na haki. Bwana Spika, hii ardhi chunguzeni kwa makini sana. Watu wameumia, na ukitaka niwalete hapa watakuja waone ni uongo, ni wazushi hawa. Thank you, Bwana Speaker.
Na Mheshimiwa Obo, umesema unaweza lia. Umesema unaweza lia. Nimesema huu ni muhula wa hiyo kazi. Member for Tideret.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, I rise to support this petition. And Honorable Speaker, I want this House to come to realize that land in this country, there are several communities and several individuals who have lost their land not because of anything. It is because they did not have their rights and they were not given the right to own. Honorable Speaker, my county, was actually a white highland area. And majority of the people were pushed out. And up to today, a number of them do not even have a place to call a home. And when a petition like that is brought before this House, and I think our county government one time wrote a petition even to the British government over the issue of settlement of the Nandi people who had actually been displaced during the construction of the railway. And many of them up to today are squatters across the Rift Valley. So, Honorable Speaker, when such a petition is brought forward, it is to right the wrongs that had been done. It is not to evict other people. It is actually to assist these people to settle down inside other communities and have their rights actually taken into. I thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Finally, member for Nambale.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I will not as well going to comment on this, except that I was touched perversely with the comments of the chairman of the Legal Committee. Essentially, what you're saying is that might is right. I think there are a number of pitfalls in this petition that can ignite conflict and so on, and that sort of militates a bit against it. But I think that we must find an alternative way in how we explain the difficulty of dealing with a petition of this nature. Remember that we are talking about 1908, which is about the colonial period of the British colonial government, but we have had colonial governments before that. But we also should know that as we speak today, similar issues are arising and continuing in this country. We can't keep burying it under the carpet. And I would have been happier if perhaps Honorable Bayer's petition wasn't as confrontational as it was, that seems to pit one community against another, as opposed to dealing with issues that were right and were wrong because of historical processes, and we find a way in which this can be done. But I think that to dismiss it, to say so-and-so is there, he didn't do anything. So I was part of the people who managed this land transfer program when AFC used to have a responsibility for it. And the way it was done are not things that you want to recall here with any pride whatsoever. It was who was in power that made the decisions. So let us not go there with celebration. That's not something we want to go back to. But I think we want to look at the demerits of this particular petition in respect of its potential for conflict without solution. So,
well, of course, in 1908, we were still under some company, isn't it? I think we were a protectorate, not yet a colony. We became a colony in 1921. So we were, some company was still dealing with those issues. You know, I bear. Let the petition go as the owner has declared. We have only 30 minutes for petition, comments on petitions. And in our rules, we don't have a situation whereby the person presenting the petition will be given an opportunity to respond. No. Unless you want to import some queer procedure. No. Having read it out, it is not open to him to withdraw now. Maybe at a later date. No, we don't have that procedure. We don't have it, and I don't want to introduce it. Let's just keep within our rules. Next order.
Order number 5, papers.
Leader of majority.
Honorable Speaker, I beg to lay the following papers on the table of the House today, Wednesday, February 16th, 2022, in the afternoon sitting. First batch, the reports of the Auditor General and financial statements in respect to the following institutions for the year ended 30th of June 2021 and the certificates therein. Revenue statements, Ministry of Defense, Ministry of Environment and Forestry, revenue statements of the Ministry of Defense, again, Kenya Space Agency, Rabura Irrigation Development Project. The second batch is the reports of the Auditor General financial statements in respect to the following institutions for the year ended 30th of June 2020 and the certificates therein. The Communications Authority of Kenya, Universal Service Fund, the Murang'a University of Technology, assessment of performance of the Public Financial Management System, the Anti-Counterfeit Authority, School Equipment Production Unit, National Crime Research Center, and National Environment Complaints Committee. The third batch, the reports of the Auditor General financial statements in respect of the following constituencies for the year ended 30th of June 2020 and the certificates therein. And the constituencies are Kajiado East, Samburu West, Njoro, Nakuru Town West, Baringo South, and Mathioya. Fourth batch is the reports of the Auditor General and financial statements in respect of the following institutions for the year ended 30th of June 2019 and the certificates therein. And these are the National Museums of Kenya, Rift Valley Technical Training Institute, Kipiperi Technical and Vocational College, Saikuru Technical and Training Institute, Intergovernment Relations Technical Committee, and Shamilil Sugar Company Limited. And lastly is the report of the Auditor General and financial statement of Matuga constituency. Lastly, it's the report of the Auditor General and financial statement of Matuga constituency for the year ended 30th of June 2019 and the certificate therein. Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Next is the report by the member for Kitui Rural. You don't have a card?
I have a card.
Or you don't know how to operate the intervention button?
No, it's already there. Thank you, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, I beg to lay the following paper on the table of this House. Today, Wednesday, February 16, 2022. Report on the Departmental Committee on Finance and National Planning on the consideration of His Excellency the President's Memorandum on the Kenya Deposit Insurance Amendment Bill, National Assembly Bill number 43 of 2020. Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Next order.
Order number 6, notices of motion.
Honorable Kadhuri Murungi. On his behalf, Honorable Pukose.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, I beg to give notice of the following motion, that this House adopts the 11th report of the Special Funds Accounts Committee on audited financial statements for the National Government Constituencies Development Fund for 26 constituencies in the counties of Mombasa, Kilifi, Kwale, Taita Taveta, Lamu, and Tana River for the financial years 2013-2014, 2014-2015, and 2015-2016, laid on the table of the House on Thursday, December 2, 2021. Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Next order.
Order number 7, questions and statements.
Member for North Imenti.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I wish to ask question number 21 of 2022, and it is directed to the Cabinet Secretary for Lands and Physical Planning. 1. What is the original and current ownership status of parcel of land number LR number Ntima Igoki 1769 in Kakoromone area in North Imenti constituency, which was subdivided into land reference number Ntima Igoki 5980 and 5999 on the 8th of April 1999. 2. Mr. Speaker, could the Cabinet Secretary provide details of persons who have illegally acquired or occupied the said land? 3. Could the Cabinet Secretary undertake to institute action against persons who have facilitated the illegal transfer of the said land? 4. Are there any plans by the Ministry to ensure that the title deeds illegally acquired for the said land are revoked and that the land reverts to the community for public use? Mr. Speaker, this question I had asked last year. I had received a reply which the CS Lands had said she would do further consultation and bring it, but it's never been brought. So I request the Chair of Lands, because I have made her aware, that we get a proper answer this time, because there were gaps in the answer she brought last time. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Well, the question will be replied to before the Departmental Committee on Lands. Next question is by the member for Tharaka.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. If it may please you, sir, I ask you question number 035 of 2022 to the Teachers Service Commission. Number 1, could the chairperson of the Teachers Service Commission explain why Mr. Kivenji John Getura, TSC number 414517, Ms. Sarah Njeri Kamiri, TSC number 462538, Mr. Murugara Kivenji Leonard, TSC number 463028, Mr. Erugora Godfrey Mweti, TSC number 492980, and Ms. Lucy Wanjiko Kiriga, TSC number 366144, who were appointed as deputy principals and deployed by the commission.
Member for Shinyalu. Shinyalu. No, don't even attempt to sit. No, just be upstanding. Member for Shinyalu. You know, if you want to move from here to that side, you know what you need to do. Yes, so just go and do it. You don't walk here and then go and purport to be saying hi to somebody and then sit. Proceed,
Yes,
Honorable Murugara.
very sorry about that. Allow me kindly to take it again, so that there is some flow. Mr. Speaker, sir, allow me to ask you question number 035 of 2022 to the Teachers Service Commission. Number 1, could the chairperson of the Teachers Service Commission explain why Mr. Kivenji John Gitora, TSC number 414517, Ms. Sarah Njeri Kamiri, TSC number 462538, Mr. Murugara Kivenji Leonard, TSC number 463028, Mr. Erugora Godfrey Mweti, TSC number 492980, and Ms. Lucy Wanjiko Kiriga, TSC number 366144, who were appointed as deputy principals and deployed by the Commission in September 2019, have not had their grades and salaries effected as required under the Commission's policy on human resource and remuneration guidelines. Number 2, could the chairperson indicate when their grades and salaries will be effected as required under the provisions of the policy? Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
This one, you sought a written reply. So the question will be forwarded to the chairperson of the Teacher Service Commission to give a written reply to you. Very well. The next question is by the member for Madioya.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, I would have wanted to ask question 043 of 2022. The same question, though, to the Ministry of Lands, Honorable Speaker, and in particular the National Lands Commission. Honorable Speaker, early last year I asked this question, and the Transport Committee did request the Ministry of Transport to give a reply over the same matter. And we did get an answer from KERA, which is almost a year ago, to the effect that they had already forwarded the names of those affected by that project and for compensation purposes. But unfortunately to date, NLC has never contacted the people who are affected by the project on this particular road. So I would have wanted this question to be directed to the Ministry of Lands, and in particular the National Lands Commission, so that we can know when they will come to do what they require to do.
Honorable Kiara, I think the best thing is withdraw the question.
Yes.
In the form that it is. Well, the question is okay, the form it is.
Yes.
But directed to the National Land Commission.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. I stand guided, Honorable Speaker.
Very well. Last question by the member for Magarini, Michael Kingi.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. I rise to ask question number 44 of 2022 to the Cabinet Secretary for Energy. One, could the Cabinet Secretary provide a status report regarding electricity connectivity to homes and public institutions in Magarini constituency? Two, what measures are the ministry put in place to ensure electricity connectivity in homes and schools, particularly at Adu Second School, Kamale, Sogorosa, Kaguguta, Bodoi, and Makumba primary schools? Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
The question will be replied to before the Departmental Committee on Energy. And then a statement on the next segment. Next one. Next order.
Order number 9, motion. Report of the Committee of the Whole House on its consideration of the National Disaster Management Authority Bill, National Assembly Bill number 10 of 2019. Question to be put on that reading.
Can we, honor members, when it is read out that question to be put, you know what happens. Including Professor Adur, maybe just for a minute. I know the member for Homa Bay Town today has come quite early. These days he has developed the habit of coming here after I have left the chair. Honour members, the debate on this bill was concluded, and what remained was for the question to be put. I proceed to do so, which is that the Mental Health Amendment Bill, Senate Bill number 28 of 2020, be read a second time. Will as many as of that opinion say aye? Aye. Will as many as of the contrary opinion say nay? The ayes have it.
A bill for an act of parliament to amend the Mental Health Act and for connected purposes.
Next order.
Order number 8, motion. Report of the Committee of the Whole House on its consideration of the National Disaster Management Authority Bill, National Assembly Bill number 10 of 2019.
You have not given me this. Honourable members, there is a supplementary order paper, and what we did was order number 9 on the supplementary order paper, but it was number 8 on the original order paper. So debate was concluded on this bill, and what remained is for the question to be put, which is that this House do agree with the report of the committee or the whole House on its consideration of the National Disaster Management Authority Bill, National Assembly Bill number 10 of 2019. Will as many as that opinion say aye? Aye. As many as contrary opinion say nay. The ayes have it. Mover.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker, the Leader of Majority and the Honorable Kanini, who are interrupting me. Honorable Speaker, I beg to move that the National Disaster Management Authority Bill, National Assembly Bill number 10 of 2019, be now read a third time. I also request Honorable Kanini Kega to second.
Honorable Kanini Kega.
I second.
I therefore propose a question, which is that the National Disaster Management Authority Bill, National Assembly Bill number 10 of 2019, be now read a third time. Well, having confirmed that there is sufficient quorum, I proceed to put the question, which is that the National Disaster Management Authority Bill, National Assembly Bill number 10 of 2019, be now read a third time. Will as many as without opinion say aye? Aye. Will as many as the contrary opinion say nay? The ayes have it.
A bill for an act of parliament to provide for the establishment of the National Disaster Management Authority and for connected purposes.
I don't know, members, before we proceed to the next order, I think you may have noticed that the decision by the House Bills Committee on private members' bills began being implemented this morning. And many of you now may be busy casting the day when you decided to be absent or not to look at the order paper. And that is going to be the route to be followed, because if it didn't happen like that, I'm sure the Honorable Sakwa Bunyasi's bill may not have been reached. But it is good that when some of you are absent, then those who are more diligent then can be able to process their bills. Honorable Pukose, I think Honorable Pukose suggests that we let the sleeping dogs lie. Proceed. Next order. Yeah, it's this one.
Order number 10, the Community Health Workers Bill, National Assembly Bill number 30 of 2020. Question to be put.
This is a private member's bill by the Honorable Martin Owino. It's unusual, he's absent, he's always present. But nevertheless, I proceed to put the question, which is that the Community Health Workers Bill, National Assembly Bill number 30 of 2020, be read a second time. Will as many as without opinion say aye? Aye. Will as many as the contrary opinion say nay? The ayes have it.
A bill for an act of parliament to make provision for the training, registration, licensing of community health workers, to regulate their practice, to provide for the establishment, powers, functions of the Community Health Workers Council of Kenya, and for connected purposes.
Next order.
Order number 11, special motion, approval of the National Assembly's nominee to the Equalization Fund Advisory Board. Question to be put.
Very well. Very well. Honourable members, debate on this motion was concluded yesterday, and what remained is for the question to be put, which I hereby do. That taking into consideration the recommendations of the Departmental Committee on Finance and National Planning in its report on the recruitment of the National Assembly's nominee to the Equalization Fund Advisory Board, laid on the table of the House on Wednesday, February 9, 2022, and pursuant to the provisions of Section 8 of the Public Appointments Parliamentary Approval Act 2011 and Paragraph 4, Subsection 1, Paragraph D of the Public Finance Management in brackets Equalization Fund Administration Regulations 2021, this House approves the appointment of Mr. Abdullahi Adan Khalif to the Equalization Fund Advisory Board. Will as many as of that opinion say aye? Aye. As many as of the contrary opinion say nay? Nay. The ayes have it.
Order number 12, special motion, approval of nominees for appointment to the Kenya National Commission on Human Rights.
Can we, please, if you are coming in, if you are coming in, please make your way in. Member of Taveta, you want to continue standing? She is the vice chair of the commission. Who is that one now? Is that Honorable Malulu Jendi? Yeah. At least Honorable Malulu Jendi, we've been together in this house long enough that even when you appear to bed, I can still identify you. I think that's not too bad. Honourable members, again, debate on this motion was concluded. I'm left with having to put the question. I proceed to put the question. That taking into consideration the findings of the Departmental Committee on Justice and Legal Affairs in its report on the vetting of nominees for appointment as chairperson and members of the Kenya National Commission on Human Rights, laid on the table of the House on Thursday, February 10, 2022, and pursuant to provisions of Article 250, Clause 2, Paragraph B of the Constitution, Section 11, Subsection 7 of the Kenya National Commission on Human Rights Act of 2011, and Section 8, Subsection 1 of the Public Appointments Parliamentary Approval Act 2011, this House approves the appointment of the following persons to the Kenya National Commission on Human Rights. 1, Ms. Roslyn Doreen Odhiambo Odede, chairperson. 2, Professor Marion Wanjiko Mutugi, member. 3, Dr. Raymond Plal Sangsang Nyeris, member. 4, Ms. Sarah Talaso Bonaya, member. And 5, Dr. Dennis Jongesa Wamalwa, member. Will as many as of that opinion say aye? As many as the contrary opinion say nay? The ayes have it. Next order.
Order number 13, the Regional Development Authorities Bill, National Assembly Bill number 46 of 2021, first reading. A bill for an act of parliament to consolidate the laws relating to regional development, to provide for the establishment, powers and functions of the regional development bodies, and for connected purposes.
Next order.
Order number 14, the Political Parties Amendment number 2 Bill, National Assembly Bill number 58 of 2021, first reading. A bill for an act of parliament to amend the Political Parties Act.
Next.
Order number 15, motion, report of the budget policy statement for the financial year 2022-2023.
Chair, Budget and Appropriations Committee.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, I plead with the House if we can defer this matter for further consultation, Honorable Speaker. And once the consultations are over, I will be able to move the motion, Honorable Speaker.
Yes, Honorable Ishungo, what's your point of order?
Honorable Speaker, as much as I don't be in conflict with the chair on what he's saying, but Honorable Speaker, you know, when business is published on the order paper, I'm certain it was done with the full knowledge of the chair of the Budget and Appropriations Committee, and now he tells us he wants to draw the motion to allow for consultations, and he would only be kind to inform the House who is it that he's going to consult. Because this budget policy statement, Honorable Speaker, was tabled in this House, I think, in November of last year. If there are consultations that had to be ongoing for the last 2 months or 3 months, Honorable Speaker, the chair should have been able to consult whoever he was consulting. And if it is consultations within the House, maybe he can tell us whether we can consult in the next 1 hour, and then we proceed. Because, Honorable Speaker, it's critical that we finalize, and I think the chair will agree with me, we finalize with this BPS. I'm sure on his desk is a supplementary budget that is before the House. And we'll be proceeding on recess if we are to follow our calendar, Honorable Speaker, in the next few weeks. And you remember the annual estimates this year, because of the obvious reasons of the elections, will also come early. And therefore don't want to be bombarded, Honorable Speaker, that within a period maybe of a week or two, we are being forced to consider the budget policy statement, the supplementary estimates, and also start thinking about the annual estimates, Honorable Speaker. And you also need to give maybe those you want to consult within the executive time to be able to understand what is it that we have passed in the policy document that will inform the annual estimates, Honorable Speaker. And therefore, would like the chair to just give us a little bit more information. Who is it that he wants to consult? Is it the committee? Is it the House? Or is it other players in government, Honorable Speaker?
Chair, Budget, you wish to...
Speaker, is wide consultation, and for sure, definitely, when I will be moving, I will be able to make reference to all the consultations that we have already done. I don't want to preempt the consultation. He has been a chair, so he knows there are members, you know, there are stakeholders. So, Honorable Speaker, it is as simple as that. I am also very much aware of the strict timelines, Honorable Speaker. It's a concern to us, and we'll make sure that as soon as possible that you will be able, I'll be able to move, I will be able to come to you, Honorable Speaker, and to the House.
Yeah. Yes.
Honorable Speaker, I know the Honorable Kanini is being evasive, but since a number of us had amendments, some of which are basically amendments to proposals on the recommendations he has in his report, if then we are to debate this report another day, what I was looking for is him to confirm to us if consultations are consultations even with the rest of the House, then someone like myself who has an amendment, and the Honorable Sosion who has an amendment on the teacher training, continuous teacher training, it's called what? TPD, Teacher Professional Development Training for Teachers.
to provide resources, and I think when I consulted with the Honorable Sosion, it was just to create resources for the TPD to be financed by government, because it is government and TSC that is requiring this of teachers. I have amendments, Honorable Speaker, which would also be helping the chair in terms of the equitable share of revenue, to ensure that we change our revenue, our share of revenue to counties, in line with the President's pledge that what was to get into BBI on 35% of shareable revenue.
You are going into details.
Chair, therefore, I just want, Honorable Speaker, the chair to indulge and then inform us whether we can then go back to his committee and have some of these amendments considered by the committee, so that when he comes back after the consultations with us and others, we can then just pass one report without necessarily have to waste the House's time and taxpayers' time moving amendments on the floor.
So you are saying to a wide range of stakeholders.
Yes.
So let's just allow that you are part of the, agree that you are part of the stakeholders, and you will be consultant. So we take out that business from the order paper. Next order.
Order number 16, motion, report on the medium-term debt management strategy for the financial year 2022-2023.
Yes, Chair, budget.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. I request again, just like, because they are intertwined, they are related. So, Honorable Speaker, still for further consultation, I request that we start it down, and we'll be able to provide, or move it the soonest that I'll be ready, Honorable Speaker.
I think there's no need for debate. Let's just, if he is not ready and is the owner of the motion, we allow it. Next order. Committee. Just tell him. Next order.
Order number 17, Committee of the Whole House.
Very well, honour members.
Order members, order members, order members. We are now in committee of the whole House to consider the Circle Societies Amendment National Assembly Bill number 55 of 2021. So you call it.
Clauses 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and 9.
I propose the question that clauses 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and 9 be part of the bill. There are no proposed amendments to this. I therefore put the question that clauses 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and 9 be part of the bill. Will as many of that opinion say aye? Aye. Will as many as have a contrary opinion say nay? The ayes have it.
Title?
I propose the question that the title be the title of the bill. There's no amendment to this. I therefore put the question that the title be the title of the bill. Will as many as of that opinion say aye? Aye. Will as many as of a contrary opinion say nay? The ayes have it.
Clause 1.
I propose the question that clause 1 be part of the bill. There's no amendment to this. I now put the question that clause 1 be part of the bill. Will as many as of that opinion say aye? Aye. Will as many as of a contrary opinion say nay? The ayes have it. Honorable Chris Famado, don't worry, we are done. It was a very short bill. So we shall now move to reporting. So, mover. Honorable Chairperson, I beg to move that the committee do report to the House its consideration of the Circle Societies Amendment Bill, National Assembly Bill number 55 of 2021, and its approval thereof without amendments. I put the question that the committee do report to the House its consideration of the Circle Societies Amendment Bill, National Assembly Bill number 55 of 2021, and its approval thereof without amendments.
Honorable members, Mr. Speaker.
Chair.
Honorable Speaker, I beg to report that the Committee of the Whole House has considered the Circle Societies Amendment Bill, National Assembly Bill number 55 of 2021, and approved the same without amendments.
The mover.
Honorable Speaker, I beg to move that this House do agree with the report of the Committee of the Whole House
on its consideration of the Circle Societies Amendment Bill, National Assembly Bill number 55 of 2021. And I also request the Honorable Chris Wamalwa to second the motion.
The Honorable Chris Wamalwa.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I second.
Thank you. Honorable members, I propose the question that this House do agree with the report of the Committee of the Whole House on its consideration of the Circle Societies Amendment Bill, National Assembly Bill number 55 of 2021. Honorable members, I direct that the next necessary steps in regard to this particular business to be undertaken when the business will be set down on the order paper next. So I direct that we move on to the next business on the order paper. The Honorable Jared, what is out of order?
I thank you very much, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, yesterday, amidst intervention on petitions, I did raise a matter here that could not be concluded because it sounded a little misplaced for the moment, however relevant it was. And this relates to the inordinate delay on disbursement of the NGCDF. There was a promise that was made by the Committee and Treasury that by January, all the accounts were to receive 100 million shillings, Honorable Speaker. We are ending February, and that has not been responded to or honored by the Treasury. Honorable Speaker, I'm very afraid that most of our children rely solely on bursary from the NGCDF, and some of them are now languishing at home, cannot be allowed back in school due to non-payment. And Honorable Speaker, this now puts us in a precarious position as members of Parliament. If promises are made and we, henceforth, and we also, put the same promises to the people that we serve, I think it is only prudent that Treasury follows up on those promises that they make for us. And Honorable Speaker, I'm very afraid also that most of the projects are delaying in implementation, some of which also feeds into the CBC program. You remember the executive did made a special request to members of Parliament to collaborate with the Ministry of Education so that we increase the number of classrooms that are very much needed at this point in time. Honorable Speaker, I need your direction. This is a promise that was made on the floor of this House. Members of Parliament are stuck. They do not know what to do going forward. The accounts are dry. And they did make a promise, actually, that by March of 2022, all the monies owed to NGCDF ought to have been remitted, Honorable Speaker. I do not know what we are going to do, but I know your chair has always come to the rescue of members of Parliament in cases of such delays. And hence, I request your pronouncement, Honorable Speaker, and direction on this matter so that what we need to do should be done. Already we have started experiencing quorum challenges, especially in the mornings, Honorable Speaker. And I think if we are not going to collectively approach this matter, then we may, at the end of the day, with the end of this term, and Synod year recess that is coming up in June, we are going into an electoral cycle without monies that ought to have been spent on projects that feed directly into the welfare of our people. As I conclude, Honorable Speaker, everyone will tell you that as little as that money is, if you have to juxtapose it against the shareable revenue to the counties, this is the only money that, little as it is. So the little that we expend on our people is not there. So either the priorities are wrong somewhere or the members of Parliament weren't told the actual truth as regards this monies, Honorable Speaker. And I seek your indulgence, I seek your direction on this matter, and I thank you.
Fonyando. You have expressed yourself that you are very afraid. I share in your fear. Indeed, this particular speaker feels the heavy boot of the treasury on his neck, and he can hardly breathe from the lack of funds at that level, and it is important. But I think that there will be a solution to it sooner than later. I'm sure the substantive speaker will be giving directions in that direction. But in any event, the House itself through its committees, the Finance Committee, the Budget Committee, I'm sure they are seized of this matter, and they will do what they need to do so that these funds are made available to our children. The next business.
Order number 18, the Wildlife Conservation and Management Amendment Bill, Senate Bill number 30 of 2020, second reading, resumption of debate.
Fair update. You had a balance of 35 minutes. You are moving. You may proceed.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, the committee also took into notice the report by the Senate Standing Committee on Land, Environment and Natural Resources, in which it observed that it had received views in accordance with Article 118 of the Constitution from Kenya National Commission on Human Rights and National Justice. On the same, Mr. Speaker, the committee invited the Ministry of Tourism and Wildlife via a letter reference on 5th October 2021 for a meeting on the bill, which was held on Tuesday, 19 October 2021. The ministry made submission that the bill seeks to amend the Wildlife Conservation and Management Act number 47 of 2013 in order to make further provision for allocation of adequate facilities to county wildlife conservation and compensation committees established under the Act. Mr. Speaker, the ministry also submitted that the bill provides for timeline for 12 months for the compensation of human death, human injuries, crops and property damage caused by the wildlife in accordance with the Act. The Act makes further provision for the payment of compensation and other entitlements due to local communities affected by wildlife in accordance with the Act, Mr. Speaker. The ministry requested for the withdrawal of the bill as there was already an ongoing comprehensive review of Wildlife Conservation and Management Act of number 47 of 2030. The comprehensive review is being done, Mr. Speaker, in the interest of the public, with a view of repealing the current act and coming up with new laws that effectively addresses many of the current issues so as to avoid piecemeal amendments. Mr. Speaker, the ministry is doing an overhaul of the Act of 47 of 2030. And they requested that since the Senate is doing a piecemeal amendment, that they will accommodate all the amendment that came from the Senate, and they will do it in a holistic manner and comprehensively they already have a bill, Mr. Speaker. The ministry undertook to comprehensively look at the proposed amendments and harmonize them with other submissions from various stakeholders so as to enable it to develop a comprehensive legal instrument that enables unified approach in conservation and management of wildlife, Mr. Speaker. So, Mr. Speaker, when the ministry is looking thoroughly on doing a very holistic and comprehensive proposals, and they are putting into account the amendments that was forwarded to this House from the Senate, and the ministry is going to harmonize all the submission from various stakeholders, because there are many stakeholders who are interested with the Wildlife Conservation and Management Act, Mr. Speaker, and they feel that they will do a very comprehensive legal framework or instruments that will address and unify all the proposals that have been forwarded by many stakeholders in this country, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, in considering the bill and the views from the Senate Committee on Environment, Natural Resource, Land, and State Department, and the Parliamentary Budget Office, the committee observed the following, Mr. Speaker. The observation that we made, Mr. Speaker, the bill meets the criteria required to define it as money bill, Mr. Speaker. Pursuant to Article 114, B and C of the Constitution. As such, the National Assembly is required to take into consideration recommendations of the Budget and Appropriation Committee when debating the bill. Further, money bill can only be introduced into the National Assembly pursuant to Article 109(5) of the Constitution. Therefore, the bill should have first been introduced to the National Assembly and not to the Senate, Mr. Speaker. Any money bill, Mr. Speaker, is supposed to be introduced to this House first and not the Senate. And now that this bill came from the Senate and it is a money bill, it gives, we already have recommendation by the Budget and Appropriation Committee, and the Budget Office have thoroughly advised the committee on that this bill, since it was generated from the Senate, then it was not introduced in the National Assembly. So it has a challenge, it has a problem, Mr. Speaker. The committee also observed that there is an ongoing comprehensive review of Wildlife Conservation and Management Act number 47 of 2013 by the Ministry of Tourism and Wildlife. The ministry was collecting submission for inclusion in the new bill that will be overhauled the current act. The committee also noted that the ministry was willing to incorporate the proposed amendment provided in this bill, Mr. Speaker. The committee, having considered the Wildlife Conservation and Management Amendment Bill, Bill 2020, Senate Bill number 30 of 2020, recommends that the House rejects the bill since it is a money bill pursuant to Article 114 of the Constitution, and as such, it can only be introduced into the National Assembly pursuant to Article 109(5) of the Constitution, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, the committee after thoroughly getting views through various stakeholders and through state machineries, we looked clearly and thoroughly, and we found out that the amendment bill of the Senate number 30 of 2020 is a money bill. And being a money bill, it is supposed to generate, any money bill is supposed to generate from the National Assembly. And for that reason, we are requesting the House to reject the bill that was generated and introduced by the Senate, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, in conclusion, on behalf of the Departmental Committee on Environment and Natural Resources, I am grateful to the Office of the Speaker and the Clerk of the National Assembly for the logistic and technical support accorded to it during its sitting to consider this bill, Mr. Speaker. The committee further wishes to thank all stakeholders who participated in consideration of this bill. Finally, I wish to express my appreciation to the honorable members of the committee who made useful contribution towards the consideration of this bill. I also want to thank all the members who had developed interest from this House and who came before the committee, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, Madam Speaker, I beg to move, and I call upon
Your seconder is lost.
I call upon Honorable Sarah to second.
Honorable Korere. Are you aware of what you're seconding? Okay.
I'm only not seeing my card here.
The chair seems to have fished you out. Give Honorable Sarah the mic. Can you use the next one?
You can use that.
There is one that is on.
Okay. No, we are not supporting. No, we are not supporting. We are rejecting.
So we don't need to second.
Okay. Okay. We don't need to second. Okay.
Yeah. There's no need to second.
Okay.
So without a second.
You're head of the committee of rejection. Conservation. Yes.
Honorable Sarah Korere, I think clearly from the chair's presentation, you cannot second what she's against. So you can only decline because the chair is seconding means. Seconding actually means that you're supporting. So, Honorable Sarah, you can only decline.
Thank you, Chair. Chair, as advised, I stand to decline because the Chair has already made a pronouncement on rejecting the bill.
Yeah, that is in order. Honorable members, being that the Wildlife Conservation and Management Amendment Bill, Senate Bill number 30 of 2020, has in essence been rejected by the Committee of the National Assembly, it stands deferred up for mediation. Next order.
Order number 19, the Universities Amendment Bill, National Assembly Bill number 35 of 2021, second reading.
Honorable Leader of Majority.
Yes. Honorable Speaker, I beg to move that the Universities Amendment Bill, National Assembly Bill number 35 of 2021, be now
Honorable Leader
read.
of Majority, just a small clarification. Honorable members, Honorable Ochanda, I see you struggling together with other members. What the chair has done is to reject a bill that has come from the Senate. So in essence, it cannot be seconded because we are not admitting it in the first place. So it has to go for mediation. Yeah. Honorable Leader of Majority.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker, for that clarification. To the membership. Let me take that back again. The Honorable Speaker, I beg to move that the Universities Amendment Bill, the National Assembly Bill number 35 of 2021, be now read a second time. Honorable Speaker, members be aware, the principal object of this bill is to amend the Universities Act of 2012 in respect to a couple of things. And firstly, to address the issue of the process of appointment of members of the University Council, the Vice Chancellors and Deputy Vice Chancellors, as well as the principals and deputy principals of the constituent colleges of the public universities. The second object is to addresses the issue of the utilization and management of the university's fund, and thirdly, also to recognize the Kenya Universities and Colleges Central Placement Service by reducing the number of members in the placement board and to provide for additional independent members. Honorable Speaker, it is common knowledge that today our public universities are facing management challenges. We know, for example, Moi University has had quite some challenges since the tail end of last year. There's even fear that it could actually be facing closure due to certain challenges associated with not just the management, but also the failure to remunerate staff in time, among other things. We've also had challenges which were well documented in Masai Mara University. And generally, not many universities are doing very well, both from a financial perspective, which also means that it could affect the quality control in those institutions. Now, while I've singled out those two universities, indeed, my own time within the Committee of Education, and we did several visits to most of those universities, it showed that there is a clear need for revamping not just the management, but also the whole operation of those universities. As you may be aware, Honorable Speaker, universities tried to solve some of these issues by enlarging even the scope of courses they offered, some going all the way to giving some certificate courses that should be the subject matter of village polytechnics. Others giving diploma courses which should be in the TVETs, because all they needed is numbers to boost their revenues. And I think this also brought in their own challenges, because when you start with those huge numbers, you then end up having to employ so many people to take care of them. And when the system changed and the number of people who could go to those universities reduced. They were still saddled with the extra investment they had made to the establishment, which cannot be paid because there's lack of money. So it's in this sense that this bill seeks to alter the manner in which the leadership of those universities come to office. And it's basically proposing that the appointment of the chairpersons of councils of the universities should be done by the cabinet secretary. And also empowering the cabinet secretary in charge of education to revoke any appointment made in that regard. Honorable Speaker, universities are funded through the national exchequer. It's the money that is given by the taxpayers through the government that funds these universities. So it cannot be then right that universities will actually be clamoring for independence in terms of their governance structures, but they are funded by the public. And to enhance that accountability, then the Ministry of Education through the Cabinet Secretary need to be an integral part in terms of the appointment of the chairpersons of the councils who then manage those universities. Because he who pays the piper certainly is entitled to calling the tune, and to be the first one to even listen to that tune through the accountability. I'm advised this is exactly the rationale for this, and we do hope that the House will be supporting us on this. The bill also seeks to empower the Cabinet Secretary, again in charge of education, to have the power to determine who becomes the Vice Chancellor of the university, and including also prescribing the minimum academic professional requirements. And it's for the same similar reasons that if we just leave it out there, you end up with people campaigning and then they're in charge of those institutions, all those funds, but they don't feel compelled to be accountable to the ministry. And if you look at the budget, I think we spend close to 27% of the national budget on education. Quite a chunk of that goes to university education. Now, for that money, the accountability for that money, then it can't be that people just say, look, we just want all the other stakeholders, I just want to be appointed by the Senate, and leave out the main financier, who is the Kenyan people, represented by the Ministry of Education. The bill also seeks to introduces the Universities Fund Board, again, which will hope to ensure that there is proper management of the Universities Fund. And the bill empowers this board to have the powers necessary to ensure proper management of the fund, including the powers to formulate policies, to carry out the objects and functions of the fund, to provide direction on the effective coordination of the operations of the fund, and to receive any donations or endowments on behalf of the fund. I hold the view that some of the proposals are very progressive, and I have also reviewed the committee's report, and I've seen some proposed amendment, and I'm sure we will consider this at the point of the Committee of the Whole House. And again, it's a very straightforward bill, and I know the Committee on Education has really put a lot of effort in looking at it. I don't want to preempt what the chair would say, but I would urge that members go through the bill, contribute, support us in terms of the reforms that are required to get our universities to where they should be, so that we can be proud of them. I know, Honorable Speaker, and perhaps some of us start accused or guilty of having promoted the issue of or the clamor for every county to have a university. And this added up with a proliferation of universities across the entire country, as every county wanted to have one named after them. But we've seen the effect of that in terms of the quality of graduates coming out, even some of the courses. I mean, I have nothing against tourism and hotel management, but I know the graduates from Utalii College are better placed in the market than and have higher absorption capacity in the job market than similar people who have spent 4 years doing a degree in tourism and something hospitality management in a university. And you know, we're wasting the hopes of some of these, they are children. But when we give them that impression that they have a degree in hospitality management compared to a diploma in the same from Utalii, the diploma holder in Utalii gets a better job than this other chap who has to keep tamarking, because nobody will understand, you know, what is this degree in tourism management. But all this came because each of these universities had to create something to survive on. And it's something I know that we will need to figure out. Perhaps when we have the right management, they will start thinking of how do we even eventually consolidate most of these universities. So you have campuses all over, but, you know, like a maximum of 5 universities in this country with campuses across the entire country. Because the brand is very important. I've seen some of my constituents being admitted to some university and they're saying, now, how do I put on my CV that I went to this particular university? I want to see I went to University of Nairobi. And people even feel that if you go to some university and go for competing for the jobs at somebody with a branded name, you are already disadvantaged ab initio. So it's something that we probably need to do, and I'm sure the Committee on Education and the Minister of Education may give us some way forward on this at some point in the future, so that we can return our universities to where they should have been, and they get that respect as the towers of knowledge, which seem to have gone down kidogo in the last 10 years or so. Again, I think I've covered most of the items. I didn't mention also in terms of submission of the accounts to the Auditor General. At clause 12, we are also proposing, some amendment there that the account should be sent to the Auditor General after the close of financial year, again, to harmonize it with the PFM of 2012. And this bill, we know it's affecting universities, their higher education does not have to go to the Senate. So the earlier we can do it, the better we can get the approvals, and we give the universities a new lease of life. So I want to once again thank the Committee on Education for the time they have put, and as we hear their views, and then members will make a decision on how we fast track this bill. With those remarks, Honorable Speaker, I beg to move and request the Honorable Florence Mutua, who is the Chair of Education Committee, to second.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Meli, you have to wait for the secondment to be done, and then I can see you put in an intervention. Go on, Honorable Chair.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, the Universities Amendment Bill 2021, National Assembly Bill number 35, was read a first time on 1st September 2021 and committed to the Departmental Committee on Education and Research for consideration and report to the House pursuant to Standing Order 2165C. Consequently, Madam Speaker, in accordance to Article 118 of the Constitution and Standing Order 1273, the committee sought views from the public by way of written memoranda, and further conducted public hearings on the bill. Organizations and institutions that made representations to the committee on the bill include the following, Madam Speaker. 1, Cabinet Secretary, Ministry of Education. 2, Vice Chancellor's Committee, Chairs of Councils, Kenya Association of Private Universities, National Association of Private Universities in Kenya, University of Nairobi Council, Technical University of Kenya, Universities Academic Staff Union, Agenda Kenya, and Power Africa. Other individuals who submitted their proposals to the committee include Professor Louis Mumera from Egerton University and Tom Njeru from University of Nairobi. Madam Speaker, the committee noted various comments in support or against provisions in the bill and recommends amendments to the bill as provided in the report. Madam Speaker, permit me to highlight a few important provisions in the bill. First and foremost, the bill seeks to allow the Cabinet Secretary to consider and be satisfied of the circumstances of a university before extending a letter of interim authority. Further, the bill seeks to ensure that the Cabinet Secretary declares an institution of higher learning to be a constituent college of a university only after recommendation by the Commission. Secondly, Madam Speaker, the bill seeks to harmonize the procedure for appointment of deputy vice chancellors and principals and deputy principals of university colleges and constituent colleges. This is by way of a selection panel to be constituted by the Cabinet Secretary as opposed to appointment by the university councils. The bill also seeks to limit the number of deputy vice chancellors to 3, to empower the Cabinet Secretary to review or vacate a council decision, to adjust the qualifications for appointment of chairpersons and members of university councils, and finally to provide for staggered appointments for purposes of continuity. Madam Speaker, the bill seeks to provide for the establishment of a universities funding board, which is very key. This will be transacting business as a body corporate, and where assets and resources will vest in the fund and not in the board of trustees. Additionally, the bill also seeks to reduce the number of members of the Kenya Universities and College Central Placement Service, to provide for additional independent members, and for the CEO to be also a member of the board of COOPs. Finally, Madam Speaker, the committee proposed amendments to the bill for consideration in committee of the whole House, most notably, 1, Clause 11 of the bill, in which the committee proposes to amend the bill to ensure that the councils of public universities retain the function of appointing principals and deputy principals of constituent colleges through an internal mechanism. Clause 13 of the bill, in which the committee proposes to amend the bill to ensure that the Cabinet Secretary does not review council decisions, recognizing that the CS is ably represented in the council of a university. 3, a new clause 14A, which provides for election to the students' councils through election by the Students' Association, comprising of all students, that is a universal suffrage, as opposed to electoral colleges. Further, to ensure that in order for a student to qualify to stand for election, one must be in good academic standing. The fourth schedule, Madam Speaker, is to ensure it is only applicable to the appointment of vice chancellors and deputy vice chancellors of public universities, to ensure that the selection panel is constituted by the council of a university and not the Cabinet Secretary, who appoints, and to ensure that the chairperson of the selection panel is a scholar with the highest academic rank, and also to ensure that the council is not represented in the selection panel as it constitutes the same. And finally, a new schedule to provide for the procedure for appointment by the council of a university principal and deputy principal of a constituent college. Madam Speaker, it is therefore my considered view that the enactment of this bill with the proposed amendments will enhance the performance and management of our universities in Kenya. As I invite members to read the report of the committee, Madam Speaker, I candidly want to ask members to support this bill to go to the third reading, so that we can bring any other amendments that will be needed from the members at that level. Madam Speaker, I support. I second, sorry.
Your second, yeah. Order. Honorable members, I propose a question, which is that the Universities Amendment Bill, National Assembly Bill number 35 of 2021, be now read a second time. Honorable Kibiwot Meli.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, I rise on standing order number 35 that the issue of quorum is very important, noting that this is a very important bill, Honorable Speaker, for the House to discuss. So this is actually a very important bill, and I've sat here and I've realized that we do not have enough quorum. I thank you, Honorable Speaker.
All right, I think from the face of it, I go on to order for the quorum bell to be rung for 10 minutes.
Well, currently is the quorum bell underway as the House lacks the requisite number. Remember, the National Assembly this afternoon have been, or rather has been considering a number of bills. And the House had just considered the Universities Amendment Bill, National Assembly Bill number 35 of 2021. It is a bill by the leader of the majority party, and it is in the second reading stage. This is the point where members, or rather the House, debates on a bill where members give out their opinions on the different issues that have been put in the bill, but the House does not have the requisite number to enable that particular business to continue debating on this particular bill, the Universities Amendment Bill, National Assembly Bill number 35 of 2021, thereby, according to standing orders, prompting the Speaker to order that the bell be rung to ensure that members get into the chambers for the business to continue. Members were about to start debating on the Universities Amendment Bill, National Assembly Bill number 35 of 2021, that is tabled by the leader of a majority party. There is still a number of bills on the floor of the House that members will be considering if the quorum is achieved. But a look at what the Universities Amendment Bill, National Assembly Bill number 35 of 2021 is all about is that the main object of this bill is to amend the Universities Act in the provisions relating to the appointment of the members of university councils and the governance of universities, and also to make new provisions with respect to the Universities Fund. It is a bill that has a total of 20 clauses. Clause 2 of the bill proposes to amend Section 10 of the Act to limit the number of deputy secretaries of the Commission of University Education to two in order to streamline the management of the Commission. Clause 3 of the bill proposes to amend Section 20 of the Act to empower the Commission to recommend suitable institutions for declaration as constituent colleges of universities. Clause 4 proposes to amend Section 24 of the Act to regulate the institutions offering specialized degrees. Clause 5 proposes amendment to Section 25 of the Act to provide for the declaration of institutions of the stature of national polytechnics to be technical universities. Members are expected to at least get into the chambers to enable the House debate on this bill, which has been read, or rather it is in its second stage. But the quorum has not been reached yet. So currently is that the quorum bell is being rung to enable members walk into the chambers. Clause 5 of the bill proposes to amend Section 25 of the Act to provide for the declaration of institutions of the stature of national polytechnics to technical universities. Honorable Emmanuel Wangwe, Chief Whip, has just stepped into the chambers, perhaps from whipping members to get into the chambers to enable the business of the House continue. Clause 6 of this particular bill proposes to replace Section 26 of the Act in order to ensure attention to viability in the establishment of universities at county level. Clause 7 of the bill proposes to amend Section 28 of the Act to allow the Commission to publish the names of accredited foreign universities on the Commission's website and 2 newspapers of national circulation to reduce costs. Clause 8 of the bill proposes to amend Section 35 of the Act to clarify the procedure for the publication of university statutes through the Cabinet Secretary and to harmonize the provisions on the appointment of certain members of the university administration. Clause 9 seeks to adjust the qualifications for appointment of chairpersons and members of university councils and to provide for staggered appointments for purposes of continuity. The House is hoping to achieve the requisite number to be able to debate this bill, which is in its second stage.
Honorable members, the time being 4:40 p.m., this House stands adjourned until Thursday, 17th February 2022 at 2:30 p.m.